Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's event, where we'll be addressing Blue Foods for a Sustainable Future, launching the call for an EU action plan. I'm very happy to welcome you all today on behalf of EBCD, the European Bureau for Conservation and Development, to today's important discussion around Blue Foods. Before we start, I would like to thank hosting MEP, Ms. Crespo Diaz, Chair of Fisheries Committee, for kindly organizing the event in close collaboration. Thank you very much to you and your team. And we have our audience that I see connected online. Please feel free to send us some questions in writing, because we have 30 minutes Q&A discussion and we can take as many questions as time will allow us. Of course, the same goes for people in the room. Feel free to raise your hand, and when the Q&A session comes, we can take as many questions as possible. Having said that, we have an excellent lineup of speakers coming in, but before we reach to that, I'll give the floor seamlessly to MEP Ms. Crespo Diaz for her opening remarks. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon. I will speak Spanish. Bueno, muy buenas tardes y muchas gracias. Para mí es un gran honor como anfitriona de este importante foro estar esta tarde aquí junto con todas las organizaciones que han tenido bien el hacerlo, como Europech, como FEAP, como AIPCE, como EAPO. Y también quiero saludar especialmente al Consejo Económico Social Europeo, mi amigo Javier Garat, y por supuesto a la FAO, que está de forma telemática, online. Muchas gracias, querido Manuel, también por acompañarnos en este importante acto que hoy empieza el Parlamento Europeo y es el primero de muchos. Yo creo también que tenemos que saludar al Comité de Pesca. Hoy aquí hay grandes representantes que defienden la pesca con ahínco, como puede ser don Francisco Millamón, que agradecemos su presencia, doña Isabel Le Callennec, también al fondo de la sala, y el resto de eurodiputados, que ahora mismo no veo, alguno más se incorporará en esta actividad. Y, por supuesto, a todos ustedes. Considero que hoy participar de este acto es participar de lo que la Unión Europea plantea para el futuro de la alimentación de Europa y del mundo. Y porque además necesitamos hablar de algo que los que están aquí presentes han denominado, y me parece un gran acierto, alimentos sostenibles, alimentos azules. Y si queremos alimentos azules, por supuesto, lo primero que tenemos que plantear es qué queremos para conseguirlo, que es una pesca viva, una acuicultura responsable y una flota con futuro. Y esto, aunque parezca una obviedad, es realmente por lo que estamos aquí y lo que tenemos que conseguir. Nos encontramos además en un momento clave, donde el propio comisario y también las organizaciones se han puesto en marcha junto con este Parlamento para lanzar el Pacto Europeo por los Océanos, que consideramos una herramienta útil y una gran oportunidad para construir lo que es la política marítima, con resultados concretos, medibles y que sean alineados con el terreno. Este evento tendrá dentro de poco tiempo. Me imagino que nuestros compañeros de pesca podrán asistir a la Cumbre Mundial sobre Gobernanza Oceánica en Cascais, donde se va a hablar mucho de este pacto por los océanos. Creo que es muy importante que en este momento se vaya a los foros, tengamos oportunidad de participar en ellos y ampliar lo que es nuestra visión sobre lo que tiene que ser todo ese pacto de los océanos y qué capacidad puede haber para dar de sí todo lo que necesitamos. Los alimentos azules deben situarse en el centro del pacto. Y esto es algo que hemos dicho desde el principio y de la transformación del sistema alimentario, un sistema alimentario sostenible. Tras los debates que ha tenido la Conferencia de Naciones Unidas sobre los océanos, esta propuesta recoge esa visión europea que conecta océanos y, por supuesto, la salud. Es verdad que también el clima y la soberanía alimentaria. Todo ese cóctel absolutamente necesario para que esto tenga éxito y sea una realidad. Pedimos hoy también desde aquí a la Comisión Europea que actúe con ambición y que sitúe este plan como una prioridad política transversal para tratar de forma transversal esa apuesta por la salud, por la resiliencia, por la soberanía alimentaria. Pero no podemos dejar de ser honestos esta tarde y poner encima de la mesa también la preocupación del sector en este momento, que va en aumento. Y va en aumento, pues, por no acompañar todo esto de una financiación futura específica, dar certidumbre con las normativas y ese respaldo político que tenemos que dar fundamentalmente al sector pesquero. Es verdad que podíamos decir que el FEMPA podía ser más o menos, pero era una herramienta útil para la pesca y la acuicultura de toda la Unión Europea. Ahora, el diluir todo ello en un plan y un fondo genérico, ajeno a las realidades del mar, no es comprensible. Y esto tenemos que ser justos y los que estamos aquí defender precisamente en estos 2 años de negociación la capacidad de revertir todo esto, porque no se puede diluir un tema tan importante para el trabajo, para las zonas costeras, para la vida, para el océano, para el mar, para la pesca, como es el sector pesquero y su financiación en el marco financiero plurianual post-2027. No es compatible todo esto con una transición justa, queremos descarbonización, con una modernización del sector o con una seguridad alimentaria europea que no siga creciendo en su desventaja dependiendo de la alimentación exterior en un tanto por ciento tan elevado. Dejamos que los Estados miembros decidan si quieren o no tener una hoja de ruta en los alimentos azules y cuánta inversión. Pero ¿esto en realidad es común? ¿Es la Unión Europea común? No. La directriz europea es fundamental en los elementos como la pesca, que pertenece a todo el crecimiento y el funcionamiento y el nacimiento de la Unión Europea y, por tanto, no creemos que esto sea la fórmula y el objetivo común, sino todo lo contrario. En este caso, también decir que ha habido oportunidades que se han perdido y esas oportunidades han sido fondos puestos a disposición de los Estados miembros, de los que en este momento, por ejemplo, en ese marco financiero vamos a tener que pagar unos intereses importantes como el Next Generation, pero de los que este sector no se ha visto especialmente afectado positivamente y, por tanto, no podemos tampoco dejar pasar esas oportunidades. Es verdad que a veces no depende de nosotros, pero tenemos que defenderlo con ahínco. Todo ello con las normativas. Normativas que permiten tener sentido común. El caso del Mediterráneo es una realidad. Queremos alimentos azules y queremos unos caladeros en las mejores condiciones posibles para el presente y para el futuro. Pero no se puede desplomar un sector. Hay que ir paulatinamente hablando con el sector, que conocen bien el mar, y con los científicos para dar oportunidad al Mediterráneo, ese plan plurianual que, desde luego, todos estamos convencidos de ver las posibilidades de su cambio. O esas 87 zonas del Atlántico que en estos momentos, bueno, pues tenemos grandes dudas de cuál es su situación y la selección que se ha hecho al respecto, por lo menos algunas de las personas que estamos aquí. Y quiero decirles que, desde luego, en los alimentos azules influye mucho el momento que nos vamos a encontrar en las TAC cuotas en diciembre, porque ahí nos da oportunidad en la pesca para seguir adelante. ¿Y qué queremos? Pues queremos más científicos y más informes actualizados. Nos encontramos muchas veces con que las decisiones se están tomando con informes científicos que a veces pues no son unos informes científicos que en estos momentos se produzcan rápidamente sobre la realidad del momento. Por eso, ahí está la queja que tenemos y por lo que vamos a trabajar y estamos haciéndolo. Tenemos oportunidad, no solo en este Parlamento, sino también en la reunión de la Comisión General de Pesca del Mediterráneo en Málaga, en mi tierra, del 3 al 9 de noviembre. Y también en el ICCAT sobre la cuota del atún, que tendremos oportunidad el 17 al 24 de noviembre, también en mi tierra. Por tanto, hay foros muy importantes en los que siempre tenemos que participar. Somos líderes en sostenibilidad pesquera, pero líderes en sostenibilidad pesquera también tiene que ser líderes en el alimento que esa pesca nos produce. Si hablamos de alimentación azul, Europa no puede limitarse a una campaña, tiene que limitarse a tomar decisiones al respecto. Una acuicultura responsable, una transformación de la flota real con ayudas específicas que permitan esa posibilidad y promover el consumo de productos del mar que en estos momentos sea con un acuerdo en hospitales, en escuelas, en edificios públicos. Importantísimo que esto sea una realidad. Y desde luego que intentemos no depender de tantas importaciones, que eso nos hace ser dependientes y en muchos casos nos implante las cláusulas de espejo oceánicas que siempre la hemos demandado dentro de ese pacto. Finalizo con una idea clara. No habrá pacto por los océanos sin pacto con el sector. Y eso es una realidad que tenemos que, todos los que estamos aquí, defender. Creo que tenéis que contar con el Comité de Pesca, con compañeros aquí presentes y con el sector que ha auspiciado este magnífico acto para seguir con esa ambición azul que no tiene que decaer. De igual manera, les espero a todos, como no podía ser de otra manera, porque también será un momento importante y será muy bienvenido a sumarse a nuestra audiencia pública en la Comité de PECH sobre seguridad alimentaria, que tendrá lugar en la tarde del día 23 de septiembre. Si no tienen ustedes oportunidad de estar, también lo esperamos online. Trabajemos todos unidos, porque esa posibilidad está encima de la mesa y no la podemos perder. Es una oportunidad única, que todo el mundo entienda que la salud depende también de un sector tan importante como es la pesca a través de los alimentos azules. Enhorabuena por el evento y aquí estaremos a su disposición.
Thank you very much to MEP Ms. Crespo-Diaz for setting the scene, but also for underlining the timely nature of today's discussion, which will revolve around blue foods for the future and why the EU needs to champion that, as we heard from Ms. Crespo-Diaz. As mentioned within her intervention, it's of extreme importance the need to ensure sustainable fisheries and responsible aquaculture, but also to allow for the food systems transformation. At the center of that lies the European Ocean Pact, and through its three pillars, this is also meant to respond to some of the increasing concerns underlined by Ms. Crespo-Diaz. So on this note, we're very happy to welcome an intervention by Mr. Felix Leinemann from the European Commission. Mr. Leinemann is head of unit on blue economy sectors, aquaculture and maritime spatial planning at the European Commission. So the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting DG Mare to this important event. And I can only echo what you said, that this is very timely, as we are moving now, or we have moved now to the implementation phase of the European Ocean Pact. And at the same time, we in the Commission are in the middle of quite a number of important work streams that are mentioned in the Ocean Pact, but that will result in proposals, in elements that will come forward and that are related to blue foods. Aquatic foods from both fisheries and aquaculture form an integral part of the EU food system and are an important pillar of EU food heritage. They provide essential nutrients and proteins that contribute to a healthy diet while supporting food security. And fisheries and aquaculture do more than just feeding people. They are economic lifelines, particularly in rural and coastal communities where few other options for employment and income exist. In the EU, the fisheries and aquaculture industry supports over 500,000 jobs that contribute both to economic stability and social cohesion in these regions. And the vision for agriculture and food that the Commission presented at the beginning of its mandate, or the beginning of this year, acknowledges the strategic importance of the fisheries and aquaculture sectors and of Europe's rural and coastal communities. And while the European Ocean Pact that you mentioned, and that was adopted in June, provides the overarching direction for all ocean-related policies for the coming years, we will come forward next year with a Vision 2040 for fisheries and aquaculture that will provide a similar type of framework and cover the whole fishing and aquaculture value chain. Your appeal, your call for a Blue Foods Action Plan makes reference to this vision and is also an input to this vision. As we all know, and we will hear this figure probably a couple of times, 70% of aquatic food consumed in the EU today is imported. And the Vision 2040 will make sure that fisheries and aquaculture, including the processing sector, improve their competitiveness and resilience and ensure a stable supply for the EU market, while maintaining an ecosystem-based approach to fisheries. And we will work with member states, we will work with the sector to make fishing activities future-proof and more sustainable by improving, for example, gear selectivity, including through innovation, and by reducing negative impacts on the marine ecosystem, minimizing and, where possible, eliminating incidental catches of sensitive marine species. We have started internal reflections already since a while, and we are focusing here on 4 main axes, and that is demand, supply, labor force, and tools. So to ensure that we cover all these different aspects and that there is a coherent approach to the fisheries and aquaculture sectors. And your call for an action plan actually complements very well these reflections with 6 areas of action that I've seen in the call. And of course, our work will build on previous experiences and exercises. For example, the foresight study, Fishes of the Future, that we presented at the beginning of this year. And also, it will be built on a thorough engagement with stakeholders, because it is you, the fisheries and aquaculture communities, that are key to defining a realistic, an ambitious but realistic agenda for the sector. We will, of course, also incorporate results from other ongoing work. The evaluation of the Common Fisheries Policy Regulation, a very complex exercise, I can tell you, where we are investing a lot of efforts in bringing that forward. Work that has been engaged already since a while into the energy transition of the fisheries and aquaculture sector. We have engaged in a midterm review of the strategic guidelines for aquaculture, and we have prepared, or we have launched a public consultation on the fisheries external action communication. So these are also important strands of work that happen at the same time. And then the European Ocean Pact also announces the establishment of an EU initiative on sustainable aquaculture, involving member state authorities, representatives of the sector, other interest groups, research and innovation institutions, business accelerators, and financial institutions. Because we need such a partnership to really grow the aquaculture sector in Europe. That has not been happening over the past years. And we want to enhance the cooperation through setting of targets and defining actions how these targets can be reached. Allow me to address some other elements that are included in the call for a Blue Foods Action Plan, notably the importance of raising awareness about the nutritional and environmental benefits of food sourced from the ocean and waters. We've actually spared no efforts in DG Mare with substantial EU-wide communication campaigns that promote sustainably produced products within the EU. An example is the campaign Taste the Ocean. Don't hesitate to check the hashtag, of which we had 4 editions since 2021. And that's a campaign that features delicious recipes and practical tips, encourages consumers to purchase and enjoy sustainable fish and seafood, make better and more informed food choices. We invited consumers to explore a variety of seafood options beyond salmon, tuna, and cod, and include local and seasonal varieties. We collaborated with chefs, with influencers. We organized a competition to showcase that cooking seafood or aquaculture products can be quick and easy, and is not something that only a chef can do. So it's not just addressing the top chefs, but also general, normal people. Because another obstacle to fish and fisheries products consumption is often the smell or the lack of knowledge. How do you handle these elements and to cook them? And also the price, as we know from consumer surveys. A more recent example is the campaign that we launched for EU aquaculture, We Work for You with Passion, that we launched in March this year to enhance the public awareness and understanding of the value of aquaculture within the Union with the help of aquaculture producers. This campaign focused on the human factor. So we had video testimonials from 9 EU aquaculture producers of different species in different regions, in different countries, that engaged social media content. We had influencers visiting the sites and to demystify the sector, a multilingual website and a paid social media campaign. We reached over 7 million individuals, achieving 18 million impressions and 4 million views. And we have some spare budget, so we are going to relaunch the campaign this autumn to increase the reach even more. All the material is there, so it can be reused at your leisure if you want to reproduce it and use. And the material in all the 22 official languages of the EU is available for member states to work on it. We have encouraged, because of course, as you said, a European campaign is one thing, but you do not reach every single consumer with just a European campaign. So we encouraged member states to amplify the campaign by producing localized content, by engaging with national media, recruiting influencers, organizing public events. And we are now gathering feedback to see how this has actually reached the general public. Very briefly, I would also like to mention 2 research projects that go into the same direction of awareness and aiming to help consumers make sustainable choices when buying seafood, not only from an environmental point of view, but also nutritionally. Both projects have been funded under the mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters. And there is the VeriFish project that showcases the relevance of nutrient quality indicators to assess the sustainability of seafood consumption. It includes a media, product strategy, card games, posters, and tools to boost ocean literacy at the same time that are very audience-specific to make seafood sustainable and make it meaningful and actionable. Another project is the Mr. Good Fish that is actually developing a specific app that has been co-created with stakeholders in the sector to raise awareness for responsible consumption of sea, freshwater and aquaculture products. And the slogan is, choosing the right fish is good for the sea and good for you. So it's also aimed at going beyond what you would usually find on your plate, but really to go another way. So if we all followed this advice and purchased a different species at least once a year, we could actually save 18,000 tons of threatened species by doing that. Looking forward, the European Ocean Pact announces an EU-wide campaign on the benefits and added value of EU-produced and sustainable aquatic food. So this will complement the Vision 2040. And this campaign will, of course, be based and informed by the results and lessons from previous campaigns. This is slated to launch in 2027. I hope that very briefly I've been able to tell you a bit how far the Commission is already working towards the promotion of blue foods, how we are taking action and how this will come forward in possibly an action plan in the future. And I look forward to the discussion this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leinemann, for highlighting the importance of blue foods, but also the various nexuses when it comes to the nutritional benefits, food security, serving as economic lifelines, as Mr. Leinemann referred to, when it comes to jobs, livelihoods, but also the rural communities. Please allow me to also thank you for kindly providing us with a teaser with regards to the Vision 2040 and what we should be expecting within that in the different pillars referred to when it comes to innovation, to supply, demand, but also the relevant tools available. And thank you all in all for connecting the dots also with more policy initiatives of the European Commission, but also with regards to how the Commission is communicating about blue foods with the broader public. I will wear my other hat now, not the moderator one, but the one of Deputy Director on behalf of the European Bureau for Conservation and Development. As looking into the event's agenda, I'm the first speaker from various organizations to take the floor and intervene and briefly present our joint call for an EU action plan for blue foods that we have already heard little about already. But before that, please allow me to zoom out and observe that actually there is lots of international and EU commitments that have really set the scene for an in-depth reflection of today's food systems. We have the 2030 goals of the United Nations, specifically the SDG number 2 on zero hunger, the one on good health and well-being, on responsible consumption and production, number 12, SDG 13 on climate action, and 14 on life below water. And they're all very relevant to today's discussions. But also, I would like to refer to relevant initiatives of the European Commission from the previous mandate, looking into the European Green Deal, and specifically the objective to provide healthy and affordable food, including, of course, the farm-to-fork strategy. So, in this surrounding context, we have already heard lots about the key role of blue foods earlier today. And indeed, we heard also from Mr. Leinemann just now that they serve to connect the dots when it comes to contributing to sustainable food systems, global and EU food security, but also to achieve our climate and biodiversity objectives. Let's not forget that some years ago at COP28, they were specifically mentioned as a game-changing solution. And even prior to that, as Ms. Crespo-Diaz underlined, at the UN Food System Summit in 2021, there's been many coalitions that have also been dealing with this subject at global level. And in some of those, of course, the EU plays a key part as well. Now, I think that we would all come to agree with regards to one key point, that what we need is a healthier, more sustainable, affordable, and balanced diet. And great news is also that we're coming to recognize that blue foods have a key role to play towards that direction. However, what we're also observing is that the EU is experiencing a decline in aquatic food production. Unfortunately, right as more than 800 million of people depend on blue food systems, and also the global demand is set to double by 2050. So current policies need to support blue foods further. Building on this need, EBCD, together with more organizations, we're urging the European Commission to develop an EU action plan for blue foods by 2026 to strengthen aquatic food systems from responsible production to sustainable consumption. And the reasons behind that are some of which we've heard previously as well. Through a dedicated EU action plan, the EU can contribute to boosting food security even further, strengthening innovation and the seafood economy, enhancing health and well-being through better nutrition, educating consumers, which, as we heard from Mr. Leinemann, is already the case, and it's, I think, a great starting point. And last but not least, helping the EU meet its climate goals. As a result, this plan should be a key element of the vision for the future on agriculture and food, the EU Oceans Pact deliverables, but also part of the commitments made by the EU at UNOC 3, the third UN Ocean Conference held in Nice earlier this year. So very quickly, we've heard about it before, but I think it's worth stressing. When it comes to food security and strategic autonomy, it was mentioned by Ms. Crespo-Diaz, and indeed the EU imports 70% of its seafood, which, if we are to reflect, it renders us highly vulnerable to market shocks, but also to geopolitical risks. Of course, at the same time, we need to further support the modernization of the sectors to enhance their ability to provide blue foods for a sustainable future. Aquatic foods also serve to provide key nutritional benefits from high-quality proteins, essential micronutrients, but also omega-3, and they all serve to contribute to healthy diets. If we were to also compare them with other animal source proteins, fisheries and aquaculture also serve with a smaller carbon footprint, making them a more sustainable option when it comes to addressing the rising global food demand. Consuming awareness, a point that we heard about before, I think it's essential that we move towards improving labeling, transparency, but also to allow for the broader public to make more well-informed and sustainable choices. And all in all, we strongly believe that such an action plan can serve as a real opportunity for innovation, jobs, local economies, and rural communities. It would also serve to ensure policy efficiency and coherence and connect the various dots when it comes to EU's priorities, but also to align with previously agreed goals and international commitments. And in such a perspective, an action plan on blue foods is both necessary but also urgent. Taking the opportunity of today's events, we're therefore urging the European Commission to propose and financially support an EU action plan for blue foods by 2026 in order to promote sustainable production, consumption and innovation, as well as to create an EU blue foods platform with resources and coordination, therefore aligning also with commitments made at UNOC 3. All in all, building a healthier but also more resilient blue future is a necessity. And as in all things, the best way to start is with a plan. Thank you very much. And I would like to seamlessly provide the floor to... And wearing my other hat, I'd like to provide the floor to Mr. Tim Hedema, Vice President of Europesh, also for his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Grampas. Good afternoon. Thank you to the organizers for having us here on the panel. Thank you to Ms. Crespo, and thank you to all the colleagues for taking on this initiative in such good cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, at Europesh, we are proud of seafood. Fish and seafood, let me remind you again, are nature's original superfoods. They're packed with essential nutrients. They're among the most climate-friendly proteins on the planet. And in the case of the EU, they are produced within one of the world's best fisheries management systems. It should be, then, at the top of everyone's shopping list. But the reality is different. We're at a decisive moment in history, we feel. Global demand for blue food is set to double by the year 2050, and rapidly growing economies with large populations will reshape global trade and competition for seafood, and we must be up to that challenge. Yet Europe is the only continent, it's been mentioned already, where local aquatic production is declining, according to the FAO. We are increasingly dependent on imports, whereas other regions are investing in blue foods as part of their climate and as part of their food security strategies. This imbalance is also illustrated very recently by the new EU-US trade deal. Many American seafood products will enjoy free access to our market, while EU producers will face a 15% tariff when exporting across the Atlantic. That is not a level playing field. Meanwhile, EU per capita consumption of wild-caught blue foods reached its lowest point of the decade, says the EU MOVA Market Observatory. So seafood consumption is falling, while at the same time obesity and diet-related diseases continue to rise across Europe. And we see that consumers lack full awareness and information of the undeniable health and environmental benefits of seafood. Or worse even, they are misled, perhaps sometimes, by false sustainability claims or dubious labeling by competing, often plant-based products. The truth is that our current policy framework does not reflect the true value and potential of blue foods either. It is fragmented, it causes administrative burdens, and offers insufficient support for innovation and investment in sustainable fisheries. All in all, public and political debate too often focuses only on risks or challenges, overlooking the fact that EU fisheries are among the most strictly regulated and sustainable in the world. And this imbalance in perception affects demand it undermines trust, and ultimately discourages EU production. And this must change. And that is why Europesh supports the joint stakeholder call for this EU action plan for blue foods to boost the supply and consumption of sustainable seafood. We believe this initiative can deliver 4 essential outcomes. There are more, but I will mention the 4 most important to us. First, that's recognition. Blue foods must be at the heart of the European Ocean Pact, and it must be integrated into the EU's food and nutrition strategies, including the EU's Vision for Agriculture and Food, but obviously also the Vision for Fisheries 2040. Second one is resilience. We need policies that unlock the full potential of sustainable fisheries through smart regulation, investment in innovation, and reduction of red tape. The third is support. Appropriate funding, in other words, to boost sustainable production and consumption of blue foods with a focus on responsible fisheries, aquaculture, and innovation. The announced EU budget really falls short of addressing those needs and the expectations for fisheries. And the fourth one, last but not least, awareness, already mentioned also by my neighbor. Europeans really deserve clear, science-based information about the benefits of consuming seafood. Public health campaigns, education, and labeling can empower consumers to make choices that are good for themselves and good for the planet. And while appreciating previous efforts and also the announced communication campaign under the new Ocean Pact, more resources than the current funding are needed. You see a bit of a red thread already coming out of my speech. More funding is essential. And crucially, we need commitment from EU institutions and politicians to fight day in, day out misinformation about our seafood and also about the way it is produced. That is our license to fish. Colleagues, millions of Europeans depend on the ocean for their livelihoods. Many millions more depend on it for healthy, affordable food, and if we fail to act, we risk losing jobs, deepening our reliance on imports, and missing our climate targets. So it is time for the EU to take the lead in maximizing European seafood supply for its citizens, for its coastal communities. We can turn the tide, building a food system that is sustainable, nutritious, and truly European. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hedema, for your remarks, which I think we're all coming down to the same direction, the same point, that although blue foods are very well recognized and demand is doubling, unfortunately production is declining, and this is the main reason also behind the call, the joint call for the action plan, because we need to urgently take action and provide solutions for this situation. Our next speaker is Ms. Silvia Michalfi, Project Manager on behalf of the Federation of European Aquaculture Producers, FEAP. So I'm very happy to provide you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campas. There will be some repetitions, of course, in my speech, but I think it's a good thing that we are all on the same page. Honourable Chair, honourable members, Commission representatives, dear colleagues, dear viewers, on behalf of the Federation of European Aquaculture Producers, representing 24 national associations and around 14,000 fish farming enterprises across Europe, thank you for the opportunity to speak today as we launch the call for an EU action plan for blue foods. Why now? As it was mentioned earlier, Europe's aquatic food production system is losing ground precisely when the world is in need for more. Global demand for blue foods is projected by the FAO to double by 2050, yet the EU is one of the few regions where production has stagnated or declined. For this reason, the Union imports more than 70% of what the citizens consume. Why is it a problem? Because it is exposing us to price shocks, supply disruptions, and rising geopolitical risk. This is a competitiveness and strategic autonomy gap we need to close. As also mentioned before, blue foods are one of the most nutrition-dense foods available. Regular fish consumption is associated with lower risk of cardiovascular and metabolic disease, and every member state's dietary guidelines encourage citizens to eat fish several times weekly. Putting more affordable, responsible farmed fish on European plates is therefore not only an economic choice, it is a public health investment. Let us also look at Europe's production reality today. In 2023, European, not only the EU, aquaculture produced 2.87 million tons of fish, with Norway, Turkey, United Kingdom, and Greece leading volumes, and salmon, trout, sea bream, sea bass, and carp representing 94% of output. These are precisely the fed finfish value chains where Europe can scale impact fastest on jobs, value-added and healthy, accessible food. In the EU, this number is around 500,000 tons, which highlights the urgent need to strengthen domestic production if we want to close the self-sufficiency gap. But we must change the governance for growth. FELP has been clear. Licensing for fish farms remain too slow and unpredictable. Environmental rules are often implemented without workable solutions. And there is no common aquaculture policy to align responsibilities, set production targets, and create a level playing field with imports. Without a strategic reset, the status quo will not improve. What should the action plan do? Make blue food production strategic. Treat aquaculture as a legitimate strategic activity equal to environmental protection with a measurable EU and national level production targets for farmed fish. Align with the Ocean Pact and the vision for aquaculture and food, and with the future vision on aquaculture and fisheries. So blue foods are a core deliverable, not an afterthought. Unblock permits and reward performance. Set EU principles for simpler, faster licensing with clear timelines. Train environmental and other authorities on aquaculture-specific needs and ensure proportionate implementation of environmental law, no prohibition without a viable solution. Couple this with innovation and appropriate funding that scales fish health, welfare, feed and energy efficiency, digital traceability and circularity. Endorse sustainable intensification of fed finfish. The EU will not close its self-sufficiency gap by focusing only on the extensive farming of low-trophic species. We need sustainable intensification of finfish farming, doing more with less, exactly as FAO recommends in its blue transformation, alongside in mollusk and algae. This is how we will be able to deliver affordable nutrition at scale quickly. Finally, communicate with citizens, very important. Please continue the EU-wide awareness effort so families can choose healthy, sustainable aquatic food with confidence, supported by clearer labeling and fair marketing standards that also apply to imports. Colleagues, this is a moment to match Europe's ambition with action. With a focused action plan, European sustainable fed finfish aquaculture can strengthen health, reduce climate impacts, create quality jobs, and keep value in Europe. The sector is ready. Let us make it possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Ms. Michalfi for presenting us why and how the EU needs to do more with less, how we need to move towards more affordable, sustainable, responsible aquaculture as a public health investment. But also, I think a point that relates very much to our previous speaker's intervention, Mr. Hedema, about the importance of communication campaigns, but also at the same time, they need to tackle misinformation. Our next speaker is Mr. Esben Sverdrup Jensen, President of the European Association of Fish Producers Organizations, EAPO. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's pretty clear to all of us that blue foods is something special. The nutritional value, the joy of eating fish and shellfish, all of these elements have been clear here. But very often those who provide Blue Foods are also treated special, not necessarily in a positive way, but in a different way from any other business. Separate legislation covering fisheries, red tape at the national level, at the EU level, have created a bit of a parallel society for the fishing community, unlike any other businesses. And we were talking about competitiveness and resilience. That creates an extremely difficult environment for the sector to develop in time and in pace with other sectors. So it's left us behind. And let me give you an example from my private life. I drive an old car from 1975. Love it. Like to work with it. I take it out on the weekends. I would never take it to work. And even worse, my kids absolutely hate it. They will never go for a ride it in. They want to drive fast. They want to drive electric. They want to drive in a safe way. And if we take that picture of what I do in my spare time into the businesses of most of my members in IAPO, cover 30 different organizations around Europe. The average age of a fishing vessel in Europe is more than 30 years old. And for the small-scale members, it's even older. So the production apparatus that we have in place today to deliver those Blue Foods is extremely old. That creates a very difficult situation when it comes to competitiveness, because our competitors around the world have much more modern production apparatus. And as I mentioned before with my kids, the same goes for young people who want to enter the sector. Nobody wants to work on a 30-year-old boat, and that is a major challenge for our sector. So we need to focus on fleet renewal. We need to focus on generational renewal, and we need to create a production apparatus that is in time with the world we live in. If we want to deliver on the Green Deal, if we want to deliver on the targets of energy transition and so on, we need to renew our fleet. When we renew our fleet, we cater for generational renewal as well. So these are extremely important elements, and I'm happy to hear that parts of the Ocean Pact cover these issues, and they target youth, they target potentials for investments in fleet renewal. We will never have some of these business accelerators come to the fishing sector unless we pave the way for generational renewal, unless we pave the way for fleet renewal. We need to get rid of those regulations that limit our ability to move at the same pace as any other business. So that's the main message from IAPO in terms of the resilience of the sector, in terms of our ability to actually provide the Blue Foods that we are talking about today. And that's why we as IAPO encourage you to champion this initiative on an EU action plan for Blue Foods. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sverdrup Jensen, for your very vivid example as well about used to promote the need for the modernization of the sector, fleet renewal, generational renewal, but also resilience. Our next speaker is Mr. Gus Pastor, President of IPSE, the European Fish Processors Association. The floor is yours.
Hope this, yeah, it's working. Thank you very much for this invitation. I think it's a very important event we have here today, and especially because we are joined together with so many stakeholders who have the same aims and goals before them. And I think that's something that's already very encouraging. As said, we represent the APCCP represents the seafood processors and wholesalers in Europe. And amongst our greatest concerns are actually two things, and that's the sourcing of seafood and its declining per capita consumption in Europe, which has been mentioned before. Now, I think it's clear, scientific evidence is very clear. Seafood is a cornerstone of balanced diet. The evidence is there, and I don't think we need to dispute it. But the statistics show that too many consumers in Europe are not consuming enough seafood. Their diets are not aligned with nutritional guidelines, and this increases risks to public health. By encouraging sufficient seafood consumption, we not only improve well-being, but also reduce long-term healthcare costs. So there's an investment that will pay off. This means that we still need to convince these consumers, and it's good that we have these plans EU-wide, and we must continue that. We need to have EU-wide plans that can be implemented at the national level, so it's connected to the local markets and the characteristics of the consumers that are there. We as IPSI were about to publish our sustainability manifesto. We had professionals from and around our sector working on this manifesto, and it's going to provide background for the actions we need to take, and it clarifies the health aspects of seafood. Coming up soon, and we hope that it can provide input to this discussion. We also heard about the dependence on imports. Let's look at the market situation. Indeed, today Europe needs about 70% of its fish through the imports. Our processors, traders, and consumers rely on raw materials sourced from all over the world. They don't do that because they prefer to import. They do that because they need the imports to generate enough volume for the market. And even if we would be able to boost our landings and we'd be able to boost our aquaculture, reality shows we will still remain to be far from self-sufficient. Now, we've seen that trade can be vulnerable. We've also seen that trade can be, through its diversity, a guarantee for supply. But if these peaceful trade relationships we need cannot be assured, Europe's access to the seafood it needs will be curtailed and will have serious implications for food security, industry stability, and economic performance. And we also heard that even without these events, we can see growing competition on the world market for seafood. Developing countries face increasing demand for seafood as their welfare raises. We know we're moving towards a significant growth of global demand for seafood, which means prices will be under upward pressure if the availability of seafood does not match the rising global demand. So if we have an action plan, and we strongly call for that, it must therefore strengthen both our strategic autonomy, meaning our own production through fisheries and aquaculture, and our global partnerships. We need to support responsible fisheries and aquaculture within Europe, while also securing open, rules-based trade with reliable international partners. That can be through trade agreements. We can have partnerships in the field of science, product quality, international structures, management schemes. There are different ways to do it. If Europe doesn't do it, others will. We just cannot afford to wait and then find ourselves in the back seat. I often hear people here in Brussels say, well, the EU is the largest market, largest single market. It's attractive, they pay the best prices. We don't need to worry. Well, if we leave out the word single, then you may see that there are many large markets in other parts of the world emerging and willing to pay a price many Europeans cannot or will not. And if seafood becomes unaffordable for the average consumer, this would be counteractive to everything we're trying to achieve together. And looking at the present seafood prices, we already have a challenge. So it's essential that we have consumer awareness of the benefits of seafood. We need to provide value for money, but attractive products that retailers can promote, not by means of discounts, but by means of value and quality. Most modern consumers are not looking for a whole fish. They're looking for fish products and convenience. It's the added value that counts. And this is, I guess, one factor why salmon has been so successful in the market, even though the prices are not low for salmon. It sells. Seafood in general, I guess, is perceived as expensive, and that's not helping us. There are many reasons for this, but maybe just one example. Many consumers tend to think that you need the same portion size of seafood as for meat, which is not the case. if you look at the nutritional value, seafood portions can be smaller, but many people don't know. In general, I believe healthy food should not be under price pressure when we know that at the same time the production costs are going up. And this remains to be a difficult message towards consumers. We're living in an environment where discount seems to be the key marketing tool at retail level and not quality and nutritional values, and that needs to change. We need to educate the children and the young people about this. And if they are willing to pay the full price for energy-boosting drinks, alcohol, or supplemental pills, then why not for healthy food? We also need institutions to put on the menu the seafood we need for our children. And we need the retailers if we want to have big campaigns. If they make big campaigns, it will have an impact. And we have seen proof of that. And then I think we can still be optimistic because we believe many consumers would be prepared to pay the price once they are convinced the products really bring them the benefits they're looking for. And I guess that defines our mission. And it's a huge task. It requires investment, and we have to think big. And it's great to hear that the Commission is in the same line of thinking. And it also means that we need MFAF to make sure that we have the possibilities to invest in these actions. So, colleagues, I do believe that our sector is far too important to leave without a clear strategy. And Blue Foods can improve public health, reduce our environmental footprint, and strengthen Europe's food security. But for all this to be harvested, we need political commitment. And that's why all of us are asking for an EU action plan for Blue Foods by 2026 as part of the Ocean Pact. It's a strong wish from all players in the sector, and we fully support that. And then if we can also establish a EU Blue Foods platform with all the stakeholders together joining forces, that could bring us further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pastor, for highlighting the benefits of sustainable and sufficient seafood, the challenges and opportunities there at international but also at EU level. And indeed, given that urgent action is required, we need to remain optimistic and aligned, joining forces. This is also the main reason for this joint stakeholder call today. And I hope our next speaker, Mr. Javier Garat, member of the European Economic and Social Committee, also sees the light at the end of the tunnel, but also can help us in terms of paving our way there. And I'm saying that because Mr. Garat was, of course, the rapporteur for the civil society's vision for a European Ocean Pact, and perhaps within his intervention now, he can also elaborate on the ESC's vision behind that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilias. Knowing that we have two great interpreters here, I will speak in my mother tongue, so please use your headphones if you want to understand me. Muchas gracias, decía Ilias. Muchísimas gracias a los organizadores y a la anfitriona, a Carmen Crespo, la presidenta de la Comisión de Pesca del Parlamento Europeo, por invitar al Comité Económico y Social Europeo en este evento. Si yo quisiera resumir el mensaje principal que me gustaría trasladarles en el día de hoy, es que el Comité Económico y Social Europeo apoya que la Comisión Europea desarrolle un plan de acción de la Unión Europea para los alimentos azules antes de 2026. ¿Y por qué digo esto? Porque en ese dictamen que mencionaba Ilias, que aquí tengo, y que recomiendo a todos que lo lean atentamente, porque es un dictamen en el que yo fui el ponente, en el que Daniel Voces fue mi asesor y en el que el trabajo de la Secretaría de la sección NAT fue magnífico. Aquí tenemos a Gaia Bottoni en el día de hoy. Creo que salió bastante bien. Se llama Recomendaciones de la Sociedad Civil para un Pacto Europeo de los Océanos. Fue aprobado en el Pleno del 26 de marzo del año 2025, casi por unanimidad, 151 votos a favor, un voto en contra. Nunca sabré quién fue ese amigo que votó en contra, y ninguna abstención. Y después de un trabajo, creo que bastante importante, de los grupos de estudio, llegamos a este dictamen donde el CESE, el Comité Económico y Social Europeo, celebra que la Comisión Europea haya incluido entre sus prioridades de este nuevo mandato el desarrollo del Pacto Europeo, finalmente del Océano, y abogue por un enfoque integral que combine la prosperidad económica y la competitividad con la regeneración medioambiental y la promoción de la equidad social. Si leen el dictamen, podrán comprobar que en su punto 4 se analiza una serie de desafíos económicos, sociales y medioambientales para las comunidades costeras. En el punto 3 se refleja una serie de recomendaciones para conseguir unos océanos resilientes y productivos y otras para mejorar la salud de nuestros océanos. Y en el punto 1 encontramos las conclusiones y las recomendaciones resumidas. No voy a resumir aquí el dictamen, pero sí me voy a centrar en este aspecto tan importante y por eso digo tan categóricamente que el CESE apoya todo esto. En su punto 1.6, que es de las conclusiones, y en el 3.1.4 dice expresamente: el CESE insta a la Comisión a desarrollar un plan de acción de la Unión Europea para los alimentos azules antes de 2026, con el fin de integrar los alimentos azules en las políticas y estrategias de alimentación y consumo. Este plan debe ser considerado un componente clave en la visión para el futuro de la agricultura y la alimentación. Esto impulsaría, a su vez, dietas sanas, saludables y de baja huella de carbono en Europa. La Unión Europea, añade, debe implementar políticas y ofrecer incentivos para artes de pesca selectiva y de bajo impacto, la reducción de capturas incidentales y descartes, priorizar la pesca destinada al consumo humano y la acuicultura de bajo nivel trófico. También se debe poner una atención especial en combatir la sobrepesca donde exista y en especial la pesca ilegal, no declarada y no reglamentada. Del mismo modo, se deben fortalecer las políticas y controles sobre las importaciones de productos del mar no sostenibles, ya que afectan negativamente a las poblaciones de peces y a la igualdad de condiciones para los pescadores europeos. Bueno, y sigue el dictamen. Este dictamen tuve el honor de presentarlo aquí en esta casa, en la Comisión de Pesca del Parlamento Europeo, el pasado 20 de mayo de 2025, y tengo que decir que, en general, todos los grupos políticos apoyaron el dictamen, tuvieron buenas palabras hacia los que hicimos ese trabajo y las ideas que ahí se manifestaban, incluido la mención expresa al Plan de Acción de la Unión Europea, donde también los representantes de varios grupos políticos defendieron que así se hiciera. Así que yo creo que con todo lo que se ha comentado aquí hoy, con la iniciativa de EBCD, de AIPCE, de APO, de Europes y de FEAP, y cada uno de los puntos aquí manifestados con el apoyo de la presidenta de la Comisión de Pesca, a Félix, yo creo que no le va a quedar más remedio que lanzarle un mensaje muy claro al comisario, tanto a su jefe comisario como al vicepresidente que tiene por encima, diciéndole que ha visto un grandísimo apoyo tanto de las organizaciones sectoriales, de parte, desde luego, del Parlamento Europeo y, sin duda, del Comité Económico y Social Europeo para el desarrollo de este plan de acción. Ojalá así sea, Félix. Y me despido como suelo hacer en mis intervenciones, deseándole que disfruten comiendo pescados y mariscos, señores, porque no solo van a tener una mejor salud, sino que van a ser más felices. Así que ya saben, disfrutar comiendo pescados y mariscos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garat, for leading the European Economic and Social Committee's opinion, but also calling for an EU action plan for blue foods as well on behalf of the ESC. Mr. Garat also mentioned, among others, how the European Parliament welcomed this call earlier in the year, but also all the reasons why it should. And in a way, as we are about to transition to the Q&A discussion and broaden the exchange part with the audience, I also see many members of the European Parliament with us in the room. So, of course, during this section, please feel free to raise your hand, and we can also take more interventions from the floor. With this, I see, yes. Ms. Kalenek, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to Carmen for the organization of this very interesting event. I'm from France. I hope and I am sure that you all have eaten a lot of seafood this summer. Personally, I have spent my holiday in Galicia and Brittany, so I did, and we can be proud of our European blue food. I've got one question to ask to the participants. In the Fisheries Committee last July, we had the presentation of a study about plant-based seafood substitutes. The report highlights the growth of plant-based seafood alternatives and the labelling challenges they pose for the EU fisheries sector. It reveals widespread use of marketing strategies and recommends updates to EU labelling laws to ensure consumers receive accurate information. I would like to know what you think about those seafood alternatives and if the European Commission is going to act to aware consumers. And I would also like to add that we are going to examine in the Fisheries Committee a report about the renewal of the fleet. We're very aware of these topics. And we are aware of the fact that the rules have to change and the money has to come. Thank you very much. My question is about the seafood alternative, vegetable.
Thank you. Is there any speaker that would like to take the floor on this point?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you very much for that. First of all, I think we need to take into account that for seafood there are very complex rules on labeling, very extensive rules on labeling, and we can support that. But it also means that you have to have a situation that's fair in the market. I've seen many of these products with names that are very convincing if you have a very short glance at it, and most consumers do that because they're in the shopping and they just take it and they're gone. And that's not correct. So we've been asking for means to have similar labeling for products that are in this region. And nobody has to be pro or con the alternatives. It's about how they're marketed. And for us, that's the main point. And if you use the word fish or seafood or anything in it, it should contain that and not something else in the package. And we see too many examples where it's really not the case. So fully with you on this point. And we would love to see means to have stricter rules on these products to make it as fair as it is for us in the seafood sector.
I'll add to that. Absolutely right, what Mr. Pastor said. I think we need to make sure that there can be no misleading activity around these products. For sure, the producers of these products are very creative. We see a lot of examples of changing one letter to make it appear that it's actually seafood or meat. The same happens, of course, for other product categories. That's creative. Apart from, let's say, legal action, the possibility of legal action, I think we should also look at ourselves and build upon our own strengths. And by that I mean that we have a good story to tell, and that many seafood products actually have a lower carbon footprint than some plant-based substitutes. And I think we should make people aware of that more. And if we can find some way to do that in a very impartial way, because obviously we want to promote the seafood. The Commission, for example, and member states have more of an impartial role in that to play. I think that would be great. Thankfully, we see more and more of these tables and graphs of carbon footprint, and I think that would be very helpful to build on that and show people how low our carbon footprint is in comparison to even these products like vegetarian schnitzels or even vegetarian, well, you name it, tuna. let's say tuna.
Thank you. Is there perhaps any more? Yes.
No, just to agree. I mean, there are a number of blue foods that are not necessarily animal protein, and I think that they have a great potential as well. We're talking seaweed, we're talking algae, and so on. The important thing here for us, of course, is that the consumer knows what they're buying and what they're eating, so there's no confusion about whether this is an ultra-processed fake product or whether it is a fish or a shellfish or seaweed and so on, and that's where the trouble begins. Thank you for acknowledging the fleet renewal challenge. I can tell you that I bought my old car in Brittany and filled it up with oysters driving back to Copenhagen. But of course, just like any other old car or any old fishing vessel, it broke down on the way. So I had to sit there and eat my oysters in the middle of Germany, which was, of course, a wonderful experience, but again, a good sort of example of the challenges when you're working with something that is very old. This happens to a lot of fishermen every day, that they spend most of the time working on their engines and on their hulls. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for organising this, Carmen. It's very important. My history of fishing is since I was a kid. I come from an island community in Hare Island, off the west coast of Ireland. My sons produce organically produced MSC certified aquaculture products, and I've been a fisherman professionally since I was 18, and now I'm known as a representative of the Irish South and West Fish Producers Organisation, and I've spent most of my life fishing. But I have questions, and my questions is contradictory to the affordableness of fish, because we see the costs rising, and I can't see how we're aligning that in the action plan, because I think that we should be looking at a business plan and to see what's changing and the challenges that are there for the people right across the sectors, because yes, we need to give good, healthy, nutritious food, but there has to be a return to the processor, to the person that's going out, that's investing. Different to other industries, like Espen has said, the more you put into your vessels and the older they get, the more you lose, because you're only standing still. You don't increase the value of your asset by putting more into it. It actually depreciates. And it's nonsensical to say that you have to stay in that regime to keep investing more money rather than buying a new boat that you'd actually have less to earn and put into your boat to sustain and pay for it. It makes no sense under a business model. So I think that should be considered, and maybe along with the action plan you would consider adding a business plan to make sure that the people involved in the industry gets a fair return and can compete, because what is happening in the industry right around Europe is that there's no incitement or incentive for younger people to come into the industry. And you can see people who have built up their businesses for decades and that actually have boats, and they're actually telling their children not to get into the industry, which is frightening. So we need to consider about the future of the industry and the succession into it, but it has to be attractive to the new entrants. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there perhaps any other question from the floor? And we can take them together. But this one is with regards to affordability, the need for a return of investment, but also calling for a similar business plan as well. Seeing no hands raised, perhaps I can turn to speakers if they want to come in on this point. See there.
Thank you very much for mentioning this point. I think most recently, the biggest problem was the changing market and uncertainties around the market. So indeed, there's a huge challenge. So helping this, or not just only this, we also try to communicate with the next generation, the young generation, to identify other obstacles beside of this and help them to understand the challenges, but also the beauty of this sector. So last year we created a so-called FAP Next Generation Initiative, and we already organized a very successful workshop with 100 candidates, and also through our members we are also trying to talk to the next generation. The experience is there are lots of people interested in aquaculture, and there are lots of aquaculture students who immediately find somehow a job, but indeed we need to increase the number of enterprises, and they have to have a stable vision, and they shouldn't wait for 1 year to start their operation, because then for that 1 year they don't have any income, they only have costs. So this is something that needs to be addressed in the policies and local legislation as well. Thank you very much for raising this point.
Is there perhaps any additional question? From the floor, from online as well. I don't know if that is the case. Any other statement, perhaps, from participants? Any other speaker that wants to come in? The Commission interested in reacting to everything you've heard from us? Okay. Just with regards to the reducing costs, I can indeed let you know that this is part of our joint stakeholder call for an action plan with regards to Blue Foods. This hasn't been made public yet, but as of tomorrow you can find more information on this point, but also on our website, and what we would like the Commission to propose as well. Yes.
One very minor addition in the answer to Patrick about affordability to consumers. I will take that point. I think even today we've talked a lot about fish in general, or seafood in general. Of course, every region in Europe has its own tastes. Every consumer has its own tastes. I think there's a lot to win in promoting individual species, and perhaps also changing the perception of those species in consumer groups. Looking at my own day job in small pelagics, and you know that job very well. There's a lot of volume there. Costs are relatively low. Affordability should be high, relatively speaking. And I think that's a set of species that is rather unknown to many consumers around Europe. So just to generalize it back, but I think we need to focus more on individual fish and seafood product categories, just like in other product categories like plant-based and meat, where some producers have been very successful. Let's take a Wagyu beef or something. You can make it as concrete and specific as you wish. I think there's a lot to win there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hedema, for responding to this question as well. In case there is no other burning question or statement from the floor, yes, I see one.
Yes, sorry, my Secretary General wanted to talk online, but you're not seeing him. So I was just going to say something. I represent the European shellfish farmers, and so also part of the Blue Foods, and I wanted to congratulate our colleagues here for the initiative, which we believe is really, really positive. And yeah, as you know, shellfish farming also contributes to half of the share of aquaculture in Europe, and contributes to sustainable blue foods, and also providing ecosystem services. So we totally support your call for further consumer information, further support for the sector, and we encourage Felix to go and push for that in the European Commission. It's extremely important that we are considered at the same level as all the foods, and not just as an afterthought, as my colleague Silvia rightly said before.
Thank you very much for this. And I think it's 1 minute past 6 o'clock. Before we wrap up, I would like to take the opportunity to thank hosting MEP Ms. Crespo-Diaz, but also our excellent set of speakers, more MEPs present in the room, our audience here today, but also our audience connected online. Just before providing the floor to Ms. Crespo-Diaz for some closing on her end, an official closing of the event, I would like to let you know that we're also organizing a small reception from 6 to 8 o'clock, so we can all move together towards that direction. Once again, thank you for being with us today, and I'll pass the floor to Ms. Crespo-Diaz one more time for officially closing the event.
Muchísimas gracias y ya rápidamente. Bueno, muchas gracias a Elías, a Tim, a Silvia, a Sven, Gus y a Javier y a todas las organizaciones aquí presentes porque ha sido muy fácil. Normalmente en un comité es más complicado ponerse de acuerdo. Aquí todo el mundo y también todos ustedes nos hemos puesto de acuerdo rápidamente en ese llamamiento a un plan de acción de la Unión Europea para alimentos azules que el señor Lienemann, sin lugar a dudas, comunicará al señor comisario y eso será una realidad, porque considero que todos son ventajas y además lo ha incluido dentro de su texto, lo cual agradecemos especialmente. Y también aquí a los eurodiputados que son parte del comité de pesca, a Gaby, a Paco Millán, a Isabel, a Juan Ignacio, a Tono y también a Ana, que estaba aquí presente, porque considero que esto es un sector muy vulnerable, pero que tiene gran capacidad para el futuro, no solamente para el sector, sino en pro de la alimentación de todos los europeos, una alimentación saludable, y que tenemos que fomentar estos alimentos azules. Como lo tenemos que fomentar, lo vamos a empezar a hacer hoy y nos vamos a ir al networking, como bien el señor Garat nos dice rápidamente, que seamos felices con esa degustación de alimentos azules. Gracias y sigamos con este objetivo, que es objetivo de todos. Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos. Y muchísimas gracias a los traductores. Disculpas.